They are planning a life-changing move toward you, and the Tower is showing me that this did not begin as a peaceful realization. This began as an inner collapse. Welcome back, beautiful souls, and the energy coming through right now feels intense, private, and deeply personal, not chaotic on the outside, but chaotic inside of them. This divine masculine has been sitting with a truth that has started to break through every wall they built to keep themselves controlled, distant, and emotionally safe. The Tower is not here as a prediction of disaster. It is here as psychological symbolism for the moment a person realizes they can no longer live inside an old version of themselves. And that is exactly what is happening in your masculine's energy. There is someone in your field who has been trying to keep their life looking normal while something inside of them has been rearranging completely. They may have continued working, showing up, handling responsibilities, speaking to people as if nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, your connection has been shaking something loose, something they thought they could ignore, something they thought they could delay, something they thought would eventually calm down if they just stayed busy enough. But it did not calm down. It got louder. And now they are realizing that the life they built without fully choosing you does not feel stable in the way it used to. Certain routines feel empty, certain conversations feel forced, certain commitments feel heavier than before because their heart is no longer cooperating with the version of themselves that tried to stay emotionally detached. I need you to understand this. They are not planning this move because they woke up one day and suddenly missed you. They are planning this because something in them has reached a breaking point. The Tower is the moment the false structure falls. And for them, the false structure was the belief that they could keep loving you quietly, keep watching you from a distance, keep pretending this connection was manageable, and still remain unchanged. They cannot. That is why the energy feels so decisive. The move is not random. It is coming from an inner life that has already been shaken awake. And with this High Priestess coming through reversed, I feel like this is where it becomes even more private. Because this is not someone who has been openly explaining what they feel. This is someone who has been hiding even from their own knowing. The High Priestess reversed is showing me that there was an inner truth they kept trying to push below the surface. Their intuition was speaking, their body was responding, their heart already knew, but their mind kept creating reasons to stay still, reasons to wait, reasons to keep things quiet, reasons to tell themselves that maybe this was not the time, maybe this was too complicated, maybe this feeling would pass if they did not give it too much attention. But again, it did not pass. And that is why this move feels life-changing, because it is not only about them coming toward you in the physical world. It is not only a message. It is not only a call. It is not only them showing up and saying something they should have said a long time ago. It begins before that. It begins in the moment they stop lying to themselves. It begins in the moment they admit, privately, quietly, maybe even painfully, that staying emotionally hidden has become heavier than being vulnerable. Not because vulnerability is easy, but because avoidance has become unbearable. They tried to stay controlled, but control started feeling like a prison. They tried to stay distant, but distance started feeling like self-punishment. They tried to keep their feelings tucked away somewhere no one could see them, but the High Priestess reversed is telling me those hidden feelings are leaking through now. They are showing up in their moods, in their restlessness, in the way certain memories find them when they are not even looking for them, in the way your energy still enters the room of their mind, even when they are busy, even when they are surrounded by other people, even when they are trying to convince themselves that life is fine. I need you to feel the depth of this. This person is not just planning how to reach you. They are beginning to understand what it has cost them to stay away from you. And that is what makes this so intense, because this move is not only toward love. It is away from the old identity that taught them to survive by hiding what they feel. And now with the sun reversed here, I feel like this silence was never as simple as it looked. Because the sun upright is clarity, warmth, openness, the feeling of being able to stand in the truth without hiding. But reversed, it is like the light is still there, only blocked, covered, held back. Not because there is nothing to feel, but because there is too much being held inside without a clear way to express it. This is what I keep feeling from this divine masculine. Their distance was not empty. Their silence was not proof that nothing was happening. Their silence was pressure. And I am not saying that to excuse how they handled it. I am saying it because beneath the surface, this person has been carrying more than they allowed you to see. They may have watched you without speaking. They may have remembered things and acted like those memories did not touch them. They may have compared other conversations, other energies, other people to what they felt with you and still tried to convince themselves that they were fine. They thought they could keep the light dimmed. They thought they could feel the warmth of this connection privately and still not be responsible for what it meant. They thought they could stay behind the curtain of silence and avoid the vulnerability of being seen. But the sun reversed is showing me that what was hidden did not disappear. It became heavier. Every word they did not say became part of the emotional backlog. Every apology they swallowed. Every truth they delayed. Every moment where they wanted to reach out and chose control instead, it all collected somewhere inside of them. And now that backlog is pressing against them. This is why the energy feels so personal. Because they are not only dealing with missing you, they are dealing with the discomfort of knowing they withheld their light from the very connection that made them feel alive. I need you to understand this. Someone can be silent and still be deeply affected. Someone can look controlled and still be unraveling in private. Someone can act like they are not moved, while their entire inner world is trying to catch up to what their heart already knows. And what is really interesting here is that something shifted when you stopped trying to pull that truth out of them, when you stopped chasing clarity, when you stopped explaining your worth, when you stopped proving that this connection was real. And with the Empress here, this is exactly the energy I am feeling from you. Because the Empress does not chase. The Empress does not beg to be chosen. The Empress does not abandon herself just to keep a connection alive. She sits in her own energy, and that is not passive. That is powerful. That is deeply disruptive to someone who was used to feeling your presence, even when they were not giving you the emotional presence you deserved. And I want to be very clear. This is not about you punishing them. This is not about you playing a game. This is not about you becoming cold so they would finally feel something. No, this feels like you reached a point where your spirit could no longer keep over functioning for a bond that required two people. You could no longer be the one holding the emotional bridge together while they stood on the other side, silent, conflicted, watching, feeling, but not moving. And when you stopped reaching, they started feeling. When you stopped explaining, they started hearing the silence. When you stopped waiting in the same way, time began to feel different for them. Because before, there may have been this unspoken comfort in knowing your energy was still available. Even if they were distant, even if they were unsure, even if they were hiding behind fear, a part of them could still sense that you were holding space. But the Empress is showing me a shift. You came back to yourself. You chose peace in places where you used to choose anxiety. You chose self-respect in places where you used to over-explain. You chose healing in places where you used to keep reopening the wound just to understand them better. And that changed the whole energetic structure because now they are not only feeling your love, they are feeling your absence from the old pattern. They are feeling what it means when the divine feminine no longer sacrifices her softness to make someone else feel safe in their avoidance. I need you to understand how powerful that is. You did not have to scream. You did not have to prove. You did not have to force a tower in their life. Your return to yourself became the shift. And what is shocking them the most is not simply that they lost access to your attention. It is that even without constant contact, even without you pulling on them, even without you trying to keep the connection alive by yourself, they still feel bonded to you. And with the Nine of Swords reversed coming through now, this is where the pressure starts turning into realization. Because the Nine of Swords upright is that mental prison. The overthinking, the sleeplessness, the thoughts that circle and circle because the heart is not at peace. But reversed, there is something beginning to break open. Not fully healed, not fully resolved, but exposed. It feels like this divine masculine is beginning to understand that avoiding the truth did not protect them from pain. It only made the pain quieter on the outside and louder on the inside. And there is a very specific fear coming through here. I do not feel that they are only afraid you will reject them. That is there. Yes. But deeper than that, they are afraid of permanence. They are afraid of realizing that if they continue doing nothing, life will still move forward. The days will keep passing, work will continue, conversations will continue. People will still expect them to show up. Their life may still look normal, but it may become normal without you, and that is the part that is starting to disturb them. Because before, doing nothing felt like staying safe. Staying silent felt like keeping control. Staying where they were felt like avoiding risk. But now, neutrality does not feel neutral anymore. Now, doing nothing feels like a decision. And that is why ordinary moments are starting to hit them differently. A song may come on and suddenly their chest feels heavy. They may see two people together and think of what they never allowed themselves to build with you. They may pass a place that reminds them of you or wake up in the morning with that quiet ache, like something important is waiting for them to stop pretending. The tower does not always arrive as a public explosion. Sometimes the tower arrives as a quiet morning, a person sitting alone, a phone in their hand, a truth in their throat, and the sudden realization that they cannot keep betraying their own heart and call it peace. I need you to understand this. The urgency is not loud, but it is real. They are starting to feel that if they do not move, something precious may become unreachable, not because the love disappeared, but because time changed the shape of the doorway. And that is why I feel they have begun planning something specific. Even if they have not said it out loud, even if they have not fully admitted it to themselves yet. And with the Page of Pentacles reversed here, this is telling me the plan is still forming in a very quiet, unfinished way. This is not someone who has everything perfectly mapped out. This is not someone who is standing there with complete confidence, knowing exactly what to say, exactly when to say it, exactly how it will be received. No, this feels like someone who is rehearsing courage before they rehearse the words. The Page of Pentacles upright can be a message, an offer, a practical step, something real placed on the table. But reversed, it feels delayed. It feels held in the hand but not yet given. It feels like a person staring at the possibility of taking action and realizing that the action itself is not the only thing they have to prepare for. They have to prepare to be seen. They have to prepare to be honest. They have to prepare to come toward you without hiding behind vague energy, mixed signals, or half-truths. And I feel like this is why their planning feels so private. They may still be acting normal. They may still be showing up in their regular life as if nothing is changing. But inside, they are arranging courage. They may be thinking about timing. They may be wondering whether you would even want to hear from them. They may be going over conversations in their mind, not because they want to manipulate the outcome, but because they know this cannot be handled casually anymore. They are not just planning what to say. They are planning who they have to become in order to say it. Because a life-changing move is not always dramatic at first. Sometimes it begins as someone finally accepting that a small step must carry a much bigger truth. A message cannot not just be a message if the heart behind it has changed. A conversation cannot just be a conversation if it is opening the door to everything they have avoided. And with this page reversed, I also feel there is hesitation because they know you will feel the difference between words and real intention. They know they cannot come empty-handed emotionally. They know they cannot offer a little breadcrumb and expect it to hold the weight of everything that has happened. So yes, they are thinking about reaching out, but the harder part is not reaching out. The harder part is facing what they must leave behind in order to reach you honestly. And with the Eight of Swords reversed here, this is exactly what they are trying to break out of. Because the Eight of Swords upright is that feeling of being trapped in the mind, trapped by fear, trapped by old beliefs, trapped by all the reasons a person tells themselves they cannot move, cannot speak, cannot choose differently. But reversed, there is a loosening, a blindfold starting to slip. A person beginning to realize that some of the walls around them were not as solid as they thought, And that is why this move feels so much bigger than just reaching out. Because for this divine masculine, coming toward you means they may have to release the identity that kept them safe for a long time. The pride, the control, the need to look unaffected, the need to appear like they have everything figured out. They may have built an entire comfort zone around not needing anyone too deeply, around keeping their emotions manageable, around choosing what looked stable, what looked acceptable, what made sense on the outside, even if something inside of them was quietly starving. And I feel this very strongly. False stability can become a cage. A life can look peaceful and still feel like confinement. A person can have routines, responsibilities, even people around them, and still feel like they are living behind invisible swords because they are not being honest with their own heart. This is why it is deeply personal. Because this decision touches parts of them they rarely let anyone see. It touches their fear of judgment, their fear of being wrong, their fear of admitting that they spent so much time protecting an old version of themselves that they almost lost the version that could love openly. There is an inner negotiation happening. One part of them wants safety. Another part wants truth. One part wants to wait. Another part knows waiting has become avoidance. One part wants to keep the structure standing because at least it is familiar. Another part can feel that the structure is no longer sheltering them. It is holding them back. And the reason your energy is so powerful in this is because you are not just the person they want to move toward. You are the mirror. You are showing them the life they can no longer pretend to want. And with the Two of Cups reversed here, this mirror is becoming impossible for them to avoid. Because the Two of Cups upright is mutual recognition. It is two people meeting each other honestly, heart to heart, without needing to hide behind power, pride, or performance. But reversed, it shows where that mutuality was interrupted, where the connection was felt but not fully honored, where the bond existed. But one person could not stand in front of it with the same openness that the other one carried. And I feel like this is what they are seeing now, not because you forced them to see it, not because you begged them to understand, but because your energy reflected something back to them that no distraction could erase. You reflected emotional honesty. You reflected softness with strength. You reflected the kind of love that did not just comfort them, but confronted them. And that is why this connection scared them. It was not only romantic, it was revealing. It showed them the difference between a life that functions and a life that feels alive. The difference between a connection that is convenient and a connection that transforms. The difference between someone who fits the old story and someone who awakens the part of them that wants a different life. They may have tried to call this too intense. They may have tried to call it complicated. They may have told themselves the timing was wrong, the situation was unclear, the emotions were too much, the distance was safer. But I feel like those labels were ways of avoiding the mirror. Because if they admitted what this connection really was, then they would also have to admit what it was asking them to become. More honest, more present, more emotionally brave, more aligned with the truth they kept pushing away. And this is why the life-changing move is not only about coming toward the divine feminine. It is about coming back into emotional integrity within themselves. because they cannot meet you in the Two of Cups upright while still living from a reverse place inside. They cannot ask for closeness while still hiding from truth. They cannot want union while protecting the very patterns that created separation. And I feel that when they do come forward, you are going to feel the difference immediately. Not because they arrive perfect, but because sincerity has a very different energy than performance. And with death coming through here, I feel like this sincerity is connected to an ending inside of them, not an ending of love. An ending of the version of them that thought they could keep approaching you from the same place and still receive a different result. Death is not here as something frightening. It is here as transformation. It is here as the moment something old cannot continue because the soul has outgrown it. And this is why their approach may feel different. Because this does not feel like someone coming in with a performance. This does not feel like someone trying to impress you, distract you, or cover their fear with confidence. It feels more humble than that, more careful, more aware. They know. They know the old version of themselves cannot just walk back in and expect access. They know silence changed things. They know avoidance left an imprint. They know that if they come toward you with the same vague energy, the same guardedness, the same unwillingness to take emotional responsibility, you will feel it immediately. And I feel like that is part of what makes them nervous. Not because they do not want to move, but because they know this move requires a kind of honesty they cannot fake. They may come through with a message. They may open a conversation. They may confess something they have been holding. They may make a decision that shows you they are no longer just thinking about change. They are allowing something old to die inside of them. And again, I am not saying this has to look dramatic. It may be quiet. It may be simple. It may begin with a sentence that does not sound huge on the surface, but carries a completely different energy underneath it. That is what I want you to pay attention to. Not only the words, the consistency, the accountability, the feeling behind what they say. Because death is showing me that the approach cannot be separated from the transformation. If they are truly coming forward from this energy, they are not coming to repeat the same cycle. They are coming because something in the cycle has finally broken. They feel it. They cannot pretend they do not. And the real climax here is not just whether they speak. It is what truth finally breaks through when they do. And with the Knight of Swords here, I feel like that truth may finally come through in a way that feels direct, not reckless, not careless, but direct. Because after all of this silence, after all of this inner collapse, after all of this trying to manage what could not be managed, there is something in them that may reach a point where holding it back feels harder than saying it. The Knight of Swords is movement through the mind. It is communication. It is the moment a thought becomes too sharp to keep swallowing. And in this reading, it feels like the truth that has been trapped inside of them may finally start moving toward the surface. But I want you to understand the deeper part. The tower was never here to destroy love. It was here to destroy the false version of life that kept love buried. The false version that said they could keep delaying and still remain at peace. The false version that said silence was safer than honesty. The false version that said they could stay emotionally hidden and still not lose something sacred inside themselves. That structure could not hold. And maybe this is why the move feels so life-changing. Because before they can truly come toward you, they have to stop running from themselves. They have to stop using confusion as a shelter. They have to stop calling fear wisdom. They have to stop pretending that a life without emotional truth is still a life that feels whole. I need you to hear this clearly. You do not have to chase their collapse. You do not have to manage their awakening. You do not have to rescue them from the very process that is teaching them how to become honest. Your part is not to pull the words out of their mouth. Your part is to stay connected to your own truth. Because when someone has truly changed inside, their energy becomes very difficult to mistake. It does not always arrive loudly. It does not always arrive perfectly. It may arrive through one honest conversation, one sincere message, one moment where the guardedness drops and you can feel that something real has finally broken through. Not performance, not pressure, not the old cycle dressed in new words, but truth. And that is where this whole reading comes back to the beginning. This move began as an inner collapse, but it may become the first honest step toward a life neither of you can pretend you were not meant to feel.